Okay, guys, we're going to have Chloe. Fergus is apparently going to help us with this video. First, we're going to I'm going to talk to you about the red heifers because there's quite a bit to learn about the red heifers. We're continuing our discussion in putting together the time clock, basically, that shows us that 2020 is a high rapture year, and that Chloe's climbing the wall over there and climbing the curtains. I'm in my daughter's old room, so I thought that would be kind of quiet since my husband's watching a movie. In any case, we're putting together the Jewish feast, which we have already done somewhat, and we are going to put together the connection with the red heifer, and then why, in particular, 2020 is such a high watch time. Okay, guys, so here's the deal. To purify things for the third temple, we've already had two temples. We had the temple that Solomon built, we had the second temple, and then we had it destroyed, after Jesus died, around 79 AD, I believe it was. And so now the Jewish people are wanting to build the third temple, as soon as they can, but they can't at this point because the mosque is in place there. So in any case, when they are able to, when they actually have access to that property and permission to do so, they'll build the temple. But before they can do that, they have to purify the building spot. They have to purify the instruments. And the only way to do that is with a red heifer. So here's the deal. It's not just any red cow, okay? There are very, very strict specifications. First of all, there's the color. It has to be red. It can't even have two hairs that are black or two hairs that are white. It has to be all red. It has to be a heifer, of course, is a female cow. It can never have been pregnant. It can never have been milked or yoked and done any work of any kind, okay? And we can find this from the book of Numbers, and it's the 19th chapter, verses 1 and 2, and then again in verse 10. To purify and to use the red heifer for purification, what they do is they sacrifice the heifer, and then after they sacrifice it, they burn it with cedar wood, hyssop, and they use scarlet wool or yarn also in the fire. And then the ashes that remain go into a vessel with pure water. I mean, this is so specific in how they do this. The pure water, they used to actually have children that they raised almost in isolation so that they never became defiled by coming in contact with a dead body, because that would defile them. And they used these children that were specially, kept separate to get the water so that the water would be clean and pure. So it was very, very specific. So here's the deal. You think there's lots of red heifers. There's really not. Jewish tradition tells us that there have only been 9 in history that have been slaughtered between the time of Moses and the time of the second temple. There's a lot of speculation as to why a red heifer, and the Jewish tradition connects it to the fact that when Moses was up on the mountain with God getting the 10 Commandments, the children of Israel were down in the camp, and they were worshiping the golden heifer. And so they think that that's what the connection probably is. That's what Jewish tradition records in any case. So they've been trying for many, many years, since Israel became a nation again, to breed a red heifer, and they have just now been successful. So, for example, in September of 2018, they announced that a red heifer had been born. Well, at this point, there's 2. The 2 candidates that they have that, have been inspected and still appear to be, they don't have any hairs of any other colors, so they're still considered to be pure. Those candidates are going to be ready next March. That would be March of 2020. There's like an expiration date on these heifers, just like there's an expiration date on milk. They can't be older than 3 years old. So, they were supposed to be between 1 and 3. And there are different, some of the rabbi traditions say that they have to be 3 years old. Some of them say they can't be older than 3, and some of them say they have to be just between 3 and 4 years old. So, there is a narrow window of time that these heifers can be used. If you go on the Temple Institute website, you can actually see the heifers in their paddock and see them, and you can tell that these are not little calves anymore. These are big cows. So again, they're going to be ready in March of next year to be sacrificed. So that would be so that they can start the temple, and they're ready. They have everything, and they have the priests have been trained. They have created a lot of the utensils and things like that. So basically, I've heard people say that they could, once they got access to that property, they could build the temple in as little as 3 months. So something to think about. And y'all think about the fact that March is only about 6 months away. So just something for y'all to think about. So another thing that is interesting to me is that the Jewish sage Maimonides, or Maimonides, I don't know how to pronounce his name because most people don't talk about him, bless his heart. He believed that the 10th heifer would be found when the Messiah was ready to appear. So that was like, a prophecy that the Jewish people are familiar with. So I'm going to share that with y'all. Now, let's talk again a little bit about feasts, because I had left this part out, and I forgot that I had left this part out. But it has to do with the Jewish feasts and why they are so important in the timing of the rapture. The Jewish feasts are actually called Moedim, and that is, of course, a Hebrew word, and it translates into appointed times, or holy convocations, or dress rehearsals. So do you see where I'm going with this? The Jews consider those feasts to be dress rehearsals. And you're like, well, what is a dress rehearsal for? It's a dress rehearsal because they believe that there will be a complete fulfillment of these feasts at some future time. So that kind of gives you chills when you think about that. That literally the word means, the Moedim means holy convocations, appointed times, or dress rehearsals. So what that tells us is that Passover was a dress rehearsal for Jesus dying on the cross. Unleavened bread was a dress rehearsal for him being buried. First fruits was a dress rehearsal for him being resurrected from the dead. Pentecost is harvest. If you go in the Bible and you look at the story of Ruth and Naomi and Boaz, all of that happened with Ruth meeting Boaz and them going back to, Naomi meeting Boaz. All that happened during Pentecost, during the harvest time. There are multiple things in the Bible that are happen during harvest time, and you can kind of go look and Google and see what events in the Bible occur during harvest times, and it's really interesting to read all of those. But so it's a harvest is just what it sounds like. You're separating things that are ready, things that are ripe when the time is right. Sometimes you're separating things like the wheat from the tares, but in any case, you're taking the good out of the field for your use, and that's what God will do with us. He will rapture us. The Jewish people also believe that the feast are dress rehearsals for their Messiah coming to woo them and court them and marry them. So that's kind of neat too. So I'm going to go over where the prophecies collide, and I'm going to tell you now why 2020 is such a happening time. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about not the millennial kingdom, but let's talk a little bit about Jubilee. And let me tell you why 2020. If you could just see this little notebook that I've got, I'm going to show you for just a second. I have this notebook full of all my notes on things that I'm kind of going over with you guys. Chloe, your eyes are glowing, baby. Okay, so for example, not just Jewish, but our Bible tells us that Jesus started his ministry by quoting from Isaiah 61, verses 1 and 2. Now, he did not finish the entire verse. He stopped. He left out part of it because he was coming as the lamb who was slain for the sins of the world. Now, when he comes back again, he'll be coming as the lion. So I want you to read Isaiah 61, verses 1 and 2, and you'll see what he left out. So he starts his ministry by saying, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me." He read this in the synagogue. "Because he has anointed me to proclaim the good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim liberty to the captives and recovering sight to the blind, to set at liberty those who are oppressed, to proclaim the year of the Lord and the Lord's favor." And then he stopped the verse, okay? So in saying this, what Jesus is doing is he's declaring that he's the Jubilee. Look up what Jubilee means to the Jews. It's a big deal. It's like every 49 years plus one. It's every 50 years. Basically debts are forgiven. It's a big year of celebration. The captives go free. The slaves go free. Just look up what Jubilee means to the Jews. So basically Jesus is declaring that he himself is the Jubilee. That he is the payment for debt, that he is the rest, that he is the freedom, all of these things. And so we know that, the date of Christ's death is between 30 and 33 AD. And we know that his ministry began between 26 and 29 AD. Okay? So there have been 40 jubilees. If you look for 40 jubilees, that's about 2,000 years, of course, because it's every 50 years. That brings us to 2026. So the date range for Jesus to have the millennial kingdom start would be 2026 to 2029. So keep that in mind, 2026 to 2029, okay? Now let's add, from this prophecy, let us add the fig tree prophecy, okay? So we've talked about the fig tree before, and we've said from Psalm 90, the 10th verse, the years of our life are 70, or even by reason of strength 80. We know that the clock started ticking for the fig tree generation in 1948 on May the 14th, which is when Israel became a country. So the generation that sees the rebirth of Israel will see the return of Christ. So that happened May 14th, 1948. Let's add 80 years, the 80 years from Psalm 90, and we come up with 2028, so that we know that means the tribulation cannot go past May 14th of 2028. So if we subtract 7 years of tribulation from May 14th of 2028, we get 2021. So this means that the fall of 2021 would be the latest possible start date for the tribulation. Okay? So that leaves us possible dates for the tribulation as being 2020 to 2027 or 2021 to 2028. Okay? So let's think about that and add that into that whole 2026 to 2029. So see how they're starting to overlap. Okay, so let's look at some other things here. I'm going through my notebook, guys. I apologize. There's a wonderful, wonderful video on this that Return of the King does. I've watched it probably 6 or 7 times, literally, to try and make sure that I understand everything. He has wonderful tables and things like that, and he does a very elegant presentation of it. Mine is very simple and very plebeian, but hopefully it will help you understand. Okay? So basically what he does is he takes the feast like I did, and he explains the dates on those feasts, and he explains from the book of Daniel. We know that, Daniel gives like a number of days. Like he'll say the tribulation is going to be 1260 plus 1260, which I believe is 2550. I believe that's what that equals. And so he'll tell us in Daniel, you got my pen, you little rat. He'll tell us in Daniel that that's how long the tribulation is going to last. And then he will also tell us, for example, that the millennial reign is 1260 days plus 1290, with 1260 days being the midpoint of the tribulation. And then he'll tell us, blessed is he, and this is in Daniel 12, verse 11, blessed is he that reaches 1260 plus the 1335th day. And so, that's really interesting too. So in any case, what we do is we look at what he's given us, as far as his little charts and things like that, and the math that you can do from Daniel, if you would like to. And he looked through all of these dates, and he looked to see the overlap of the fig tree generation, and he looked to see, the overlap of the jubilees. And he looked at the fact, or actually he didn't do the red heifer. I've gotten that from Brother Chooch from Thinking Out Loud, and then also I believe from Dr. Barry All. And some others, probably Robert Breaker as well, does a wonderful job of this. But basically what you look at is you realize that there are 4 possible combinations of years, okay, that would work. Remember when I said, 2026 through 2029 for the ending of the tribulation, for the millennial kingdom to start, and that was based on Jesus preaching that he is the jubilee, and we've got 40 jubilees since then. And it would have to, the latest that could end would be 2026 through 2029 for the millennial kingdom to start. So we've got those on there. So we've got this grouping of years. We have 2029 through 2026. I'm going to hold this up, guys. 2029 to 2026. We have 2020 to 2027, 2021 to 2028, 2022 to 2029. So you can already see, we know that it can't be 2019 to 2026. We can't be raptured in 2019. It's already passed. It can't be 2022 to 2029. That's too long. You know why? Because of that fig tree generation thing. We know that that would make the fig tree generation 81 years old, and that's too long. So we already can take those off. So the only two possibilities that are left are 2020 rapture with a 2027 ending on the tribulation, or a 2021 rapture with the ending of the tribulation at 2028. So what you do is you look and see these feasts, okay? You look at trumpets, you look at the what the mid-tribulation point would be. You look at when Yom Kippur is. You look at when Tabernacles is, when the tribulation would end using Daniel's formula, 1260 plus 1260. And you look to see if any of these Mohadim happen to be on special days. Are they on any of the feast days or anything like that for 2027 or 2028? And you know what you find out? What you discover is that the dates for the 2028 are not a particular day that's special. They are just regular random days, okay? But if you look at 2027, what you find out is that the Feast of Trumpets we talked about, and he suggests also that Pentecost would be a very, very high watch time for rapture. But if not, trumpets, 9:18, 9:19. Then if you add your 1260, that gives you the mid-tribulation point of March 1st, 2024. If you add 1260 plus 1260, that would mean the tribulation would end on Friday the 13th of 27. And he goes into an explanation of how 13 is a number that occultists and Satanists use, and that's like a significant day. Then he goes into Daniel also says, 1260 plus 1290 for the start of the millennial reign. And so that would be 1260 plus 1290 would bring us to 9/12/27, which is on a Sabbath, and is also Yom Kippur, which is huge, okay? And it is exactly the 1260 plus 1290. It equals exactly Yom Kippur, which starts on 9/11 and is also on 9/12, okay? Then you come over here to Tabernacles, which he doesn't really talk a whole lot about, but that for 2027 is 10/15, 2027 to 10/22, 2027. So that would be when we would be celebrating with God. And then the Daniel 12:11, blessed if we reach the 1335th day. The cool thing about it is you add the 1260 plus the 1335, and you come up with a date that if you add those two together, I'm sorry, I'm holding this at an angle. You add those two together, and you divide that in half, and it equals the date of the total solar eclipse over America, which is 4/8/24. So this is a lot of math. You're not going to get this the first time you watch it. But take my little, cheat sheet that I've kind of done, my little Cliff Notes version that I've given you guys, and all the details that I've given you in the Rapture Bites, and try and watch the video. Try and watch it, replay it several times if you need to. He's going to give you some additional information about some solar, not necessarily solar, I'm sorry, but some lunar eclipses and some constellations that will be present and some signs in the heavens that I did not go into because honestly, this is so much material. But his video is less than an hour. It is probably, I think it's 48 minutes. Don't hold me to that, but I believe it's 48 minutes. So if you want to take all of the things that we've learned in our Rapture Bites and watch his video, slow it down, rewind it, watch it again, he's going to give you a very elegant, very clear explanation for everything. He's going to go into some more detail maybe in some ways than I did. But I wanted to just give you that. Another person that does a great job with it, again, is Robert Breaker. He'll put everything on a whiteboard for you. So I suggest that you go to his channel and look at his stuff, and he'll explain to you why 2020 is such a high rapture watch time. Again, I am not saying by any shape or form that I can tell you what time or what day that the rapture's going to happen, but we do know that we can know the times. There's some very interesting things that I've seen lately, and I'm trying to remember. I believe it's Jeff Sherwood, who also has a wonderful channel, and he talks about the phases of the moon, and he talks about the fact that the scripture, and I would have to look up and see which book it's in, but in the New Testament where Jesus is saying, you know, if the good man of the house had known when the thief was coming, basically he would be prepared. But, you know, he came basically when there were no witnesses. And so if you look at that, and you look at the moon is considered in the Bible, and is called in the Bible, according to Jewish tradition also, a faithful witness. He actually shows you when in the month of August and September there's not a moon, and it's actually called a black moon. And it's actually, I believe it is August the 18th or August the 19th. But you might want to look at that video, and I'll review it again, and I might put up a little overview of what he's saying. So I thought that was neat that would be like a high rapture time also. But anyway, I hope this helped. I just feel like I threw a lot of stuff at you, but as I told y'all when I started making these videos, I started making these for my best friend, who asked me, why do you think the rapture's about to happen? And when I realized I've given her so much information, too much, and it's not going to make any sense, and that's why I came up with Rapture Bites. And everything that I've done has built to get to this point to where I could explain this to you. If you want me to slow down, or you want me to go back over and kind of explain some things, you just let me know, and I will do that. Just put it in the comments. And I hope y'all are having a good evening, and I apologize this is so late getting posted. Thanks so much. God bless.